I'm investigating how the power factor changes as an LED bulb is dimmed. So what I have here in front of us is a Utilitech 60 watt equivalent LED bulb. On the packaging it's rated at 13 watts. On my kilowatt I'm showing about 11 watts at the moment. I assume that's just kind of a measurement error with the kilowatt. Or potentially the dimmer maybe is not maxing the bulb out, but I don't think that's true. Anyway, we're showing 11 watts, and if I switch over to power factor mode, the current power factor is 0.59 with the bulb at full intensity. So as I dim the bulb, the power factor is going to start to go down. Okay, there's 0.3, 0.29. The lowest it normally goes is about 0.25, maybe a little bit lower. It'll start to bounce around as I approach the minimum brightness of the lamp. Okay, so it's about roughly 0.25. Trying to go dimmer. There's about 0.2, 0.15 or so. At the lower end it really bounces around a lot. Okay. So the power factor is hovering around 0.2 on the low end, and if I come back to watts, you can see it's showing essentially 0 watts, 0.01 amps. Okay, so not a whole lot of power is being drawn. I can start to kick it up, and we'll get eventually to 1 watt or so. Okay, I'm going to go full brightness again. Now what I want to show is volt amps. So this takes into account the power factor. So right now the bulb is full brightness. If you remember right, the power factor was about 0.6. So the apparent power of this bulb is 19 volt amps right now. So if you have a smart meter hooked up to your house, you'd be charged at 19 volt amps, which is going to be more expensive than the labeling of 13 watts on the bulb. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the bulb down, and what you'll see is the bulb is currently operating at 19 volt amps, but turn it down, it's going to get dimmer, but the apparent power is actually going to start to go up. Okay, so I'm just going to start dimming it. Okay, it's starting to spike. So about 0.21, 0.23. I'm easing it down. So what we're finding here is the bulb is putting out less light. I know the camera's not really showing it that well, but I can tell visually that it's actually getting quite a bit dimmer, but it's using more power. Okay, so 0.23, I'm continuing to dim it, and it should start decreasing here shortly. Okay, so there it's back to 0.19, kind of bouncing around. Okay, now it's going to be going down. Okay, so the wattage is decreasing as the power factor decreases, but the overall effect is that the volt amps are going down. Okay, so the moral of this story is, with this particular bulb, the apparent power is actually less at full brightness than it is slightly dimmed. Okay, and if you dim it even further, the apparent power goes back to full brightness. So right now, the volt amps are the same as full brightness, but visually the bulb is probably only about, I would say, a quarter of the lumens that it can output. Okay, so that's quite interesting. What I'm going to do now is swap out this bulb for a different bulb. Real quickly, it's going to get dark. Okay, let's see if I can do this in the dark. That one's hot. Okay, so this bulb is the Ecosmart 60 watt equivalent bulb that you can find at the Home Depot. I'm on full brightness, and its volt amps are a lot lower actually. Let's see what the power factor is. Okay, so look at this. This bulb's power factor is almost 0.9, which means this one is a whole lot more efficient. If we come to watts, it's drawing the same amount of watts, 11 watts, as the other bulb, but the power factor is so much higher that it is showing considerably less volt amps. So I'm going to go back to power factor mode and start dimming it and see what happens. Okay, right away the power factor is actually going down, which is to be expected. Okay, I'm dimming it. Let me put this other bulb back in so we can get some extra light. Okay, so dim it, and we'll see about where it cuts off. So the other one was around 0.2. This one is going about the same, 0.2. Okay, so it's below 0.2. 0.17 is probably averaging about 0.15. And now it's off. Okay, so if we go back to volt amps, at full brightness, it's showing about 12 volt amps. And as we go down, let's see what happens. Okay, it looks like it's going up slightly. 0.14, 0.12. Okay, now it's starting to go down. Okay, so just like the other bulb, it appears to be the most efficient at full brightness, and then slightly down from full brightness, it actually consumes more apparent power because of the relationship between the wattage and the power factor. So that's interesting. I have one more bulb. Actually, I have a few more, but I have one more I'm going to test. And this other one is another Utilitech bulb, except it's a different style. Okay, so I'll go full brightness, which we are right now. The volt amps are 0.17, which is slightly less than the other bulb. And the watts are 11, just like the other two. And the power factor is roughly the same as the other Utilitech bulb. So I'm guessing these two bulbs that we have right now are probably using a similar driver since they're the same company. Anyway, I'll start dimming again. And the power factor went down rapidly, even though I didn't dim it very far. So what that tells me, if I had to guess, is that when I go back to volt amps mode, it's going to spike a lot. Okay, so it's down to about 0.2. Okay, I'm going to go back up to full brightness and then go over to volt amp mode. So we're showing 19 volt amps. There's 17, 19. Okay, so I'm going to start dimming it. I'm expecting it to go higher. Let's see what happens. 0.21. Okay, it's kind of bouncing around. Didn't go up as high as I had expected. Now it's starting to come down. Okay, so full brightness, 19 volt amps, 17, 19, so it's probably close to 18, 19, 21. Okay, so all three of these bulbs are showing similar behavior. That is, full brightness is actually consuming less apparent power than in a dim state. So full brightness is more efficient than about 2/3 or 3/4, and then as you start to go down, it actually does start to consume less apparent power. Of course, if I go to regular watts, the power is going to decrease as I dim it. So if you have an old-fashioned regular meter, it's going to be more efficient to dim it, but if you have a power factor correcting meter, such as a smart meter, then it's actually drawing more apparent power at a slightly dim setting, so that's very interesting. I'm going to go ahead and get a fourth bulb, and I'll try that one and see how that works. Okay, so what I have here is a Philips Ambilight 75 watt equivalent bulb. It uses 17 watts on the packaging. It's showing 12 here, okay? So I'm not quite sure why that is. It's only showing 1 watt more than these other bulbs, all of which have been 60 watt equivalents. And if I come into the power factor, 0.64, so that's pretty low. Considering this is a name brand, high quality bulb, I would expect that to maybe be higher. Let's go through the driller one more time and see what happens as I start dimming it. Okay, and so the power factor is going down, just about like the other bulbs. Okay, it's still lit. That's the lowest power factor I've seen, I think, 0.16, and now the bulb's off. Okay, So we'll go back to volt amp mode one more time. 17 volt amps. Okay, so this is a 75 watt equivalent. The one I have over here is a 60 watt equivalent, but they're both drawing the same approximate volt amps. Okay, so I'll start to dim it slowly and gradually. Okay, and this bulb actually didn't have that spike after you slightly dim it. It started going straight down. Interesting. Okay, so for what I found out here is that the two Utilitech bulbs, so this one here, and then the other one over here, if I can unscrew it while it's hot, and then this one, they both consume about the same amount of power. They're the same manufacturer, so that's somewhat to be expected. The power factor maxed out at about 0.6 on these. This is the Ecosmart bulb that you can buy from the Home Depot, and it had the highest power factor of 0.9, which is good. That means if you have a smart meter, this one's going to be the most efficient. Okay. Anyway, this was kind of interesting experimentation that we're doing here. So basically these bulbs are actually going to be less expensive to run on a power factor corrector meter at full brightness than they are at slightly dimmed. Anyway, that's just something interesting. Thanks for watching.